Hi, I'm Dorothy Godin, broker of 3 Max Crown Realty, and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. I want to talk about two things. One is we are pushing towards the end of November, and people think that in December we don't sell houses. We do, we do, we do, we do. So last year in the MLS system, there were 110 residential sales. The year before, 94, and the year before that, 101 residential sales. So if you are thinking about buying or selling in December, please know that we are active and we do sell, particularly for those people who are in a position where they need to sell. We're seeing a lot of sales that have to do with power of attorney and a lot of estate sales. You do not have to wait for the spring market and carry these houses that are basically vacant. So whatever your need, just know that December is not a completely dead month for real estate. The other thing I wanted to talk about was permits. So if you read in Sudbury.com, there is a huge issue with permits here in Sudbury, and the problem is the issue of permits always comes up in the last minute. So you can imagine a buyer and a seller. We have a great transaction, a win-win situation. Everyone's getting ready to move in. Buyers are, filling their truck and anticipating moving in. Sellers are moving on to a new house. And in the last minute, we find out there's a permit issue. And there are a couple things. One, there could be no permit. And lawyers are now doing searches because title insurance here in Sudbury has been decreased in what they will cover. It used to be, they covered a whole lot of things, but it's always about title problems. But we were the claims capital of Canada, is what I heard. And so they have said to us in Sudbury, listen, you can get title insurance, but we're not covering everything. And as a lawyer, you have to do the searches where we were not doing searches before. So because we were not doing searches and counting on title insurance, and now we're in a position where lawyers are being told that, you can get title insurance, but you still have to do the searches. We are finding all kinds of permit issues. And there could be an open permit. So a seller could have applied for a permit, got a permit, did the work, but they didn't close the permit. So that permit is open and you still need someone from the city to come and check it out and okay it and then close that permit. We also have issues where there was no permit. All of a sudden there is a deck and you do the search and there's no permit for that deck. So there's a lot of no permits. And people think that, I'm going to put a bathroom in downstairs or I'm going to do some electrical work and my Uncle Joe or whatever, I have a buddy at work, he can do that kind of stuff, which is great. But you have to get a permit. The last thing you need when you're selling your house is to have this come up at the last minute, and somebody is going to lose. Somebody is going to pay because there's no permit or there's an open permit. And normally it is the seller who ends up giving a reduction in price, and the buyer then now takes on that liability. And it doesn't matter if, two transactions ago, like a whole totally different seller opened that permit and close it. Whoever is the owner of the property now is responsible for that permit. And so, from a buyer's perspective, we're seeing a lot of times the buyers, at the end of the day, they've got their truck ready to move in. They will accept, okay, there is no permit for this. Okay, don't worry about it. I'll accept that. And then usually there's a price reduction given for the buyer to accept the fact that there's either no permit or an open permit. And that means that you as a buyer, when you own that house, now you're taking on that liability. So I have heard of situations, and I think I spoke of this months ago, where someone accepted the fact that there was no permit done in the basement, and so they brought in the city. Now, in that transaction, there was a deck, and it was disclosed that the deck didn't have a permit, and the buyer said, "Yeah, no problem. I'm okay with that." Well, when the city came in to look at the work in the basement, they gave a work order for the deck, even though the buyer had said, I'm okay with that. Well, the city, when they came in, they don't care what the buyer agreed to. All they see is there's a deck there and there's no permit there. So um, it's not an easy thing to deal with when you're a couple of days before closing. Normally, we are able to close these transactions, But as I say, someone is going to pay, and usually it's the seller who ends up paying. But the buyer is taking on the liability. So it's a very difficult situation for sure. I can tell you, if you're doing any kind of renovations, check to see if you need a permit. Not everything needs a permit, but if it needs a permit, for the love of God, get the permit, because it is going to come back to you when you go to sell. Um, it's just the way it is right now. Now, if you're selling and you're not sure, you've maybe owned your house for a couple of years, you didn't do anything, but you don't know if the previous owner has done anything, I might suggest, and I've had people do this, have your lawyer do a title search before we put the house on the market. And twice I had sellers do this, and we found out that there was the deck wasn't closed. That permit for a deck wasn't closed, and everything was done properly. We just needed to get the city in there to close the permit. We were able to do that before we put the house on the market. And the other situation was something on title that had to do with a furnace. There was a lien on the property, and it was not supposed to be there. And anyways, we were able to correct that. So what I'm going to suggest to all of my sellers is, if you think there might be a problem and you don't know if there was a permit taken out, um, do a title search before. And then if there is an issue, you have no permit or you have an open permit, at least you can disclose that on your listing. And now the buyer knows that, there's that shed out there, there was no permit, and though they can advise their lawyer, don't do that search because we know there was no permit there. It's a can of worms that we have to deal with, and we seem to be dealing with a lot of it. It's not something new. This is the last couple of years since title insurance has decreased what they will cover. We've had more and more permit issues. So just words to the wise: if you think you need a permit, go ahead and get a permit. And I know there's a lot of people who will say, well, I don't want to get a permit because that's going to change my taxes. And that, may be true. But at the end of the day, when you go to sell your house, it is going to come up and you are going to have to deal with it. And as a seller, it is going to cost you money. I hope you find this helpful. As always, you can reach me at Dorothy Godin at remax.net or 705-561-2360. Have a great week.